Hi, this video is going to do a short version of looking at Bocchiaro et al. It's a study on the OCR psychology course in the social area. It's normally paired with Stanley Milgram's study, and this is the more contemporary study. So let's get stuck in and have a look at the aim. The aim of the study is to investigate disobedience and whistleblowing in comparison to Milgram, which was really just primarily focused on obedience. This study wants to look at disobedience and a particular phenomena that's a type of disobedience that we call whistleblowing. Whistleblowing is when you blow the whistle, metaphorically. So that is when you um, disclose to other people that so you think something is wrong and that you're going to disobey, but you're going to do that in a public way or let it be known that you're disobeying. So disobedience can be done surreptitiously where people don't even know that you're being disobedient. But whistleblowing is when you're being overt and clear about that. The aim of the study is to investigate the characteristics of people who whistleblow and who are disobedient. Let's have a look at the method that they use. Now, this was a controlled observation. It's not an experiment because there is no IVs and DVs, things like that. Uh, what they do is they put people in a situation and see what they do. So it's an observation. It's done in a very controlled environment, though. The sample, as you can see on the side of the screen beside me, is 149 Dutch university students. Again, as always, for more detail, open your textbook or look at one of my more detailed videos looking at some aspects of these. Now, in terms of the materials, the two things you particularly need to know about and focus on is there's a ethics consent form from the university that's going to be used in this study, and a two personality tests that you need to be aware of, right, that they're going to collect data from. Let's go on and have a look at the procedure. Now, this is a bit that students tend to struggle with. So I have put quite a bit of text up on the side of the screen, but that's really just so you can pause the video, have a quick look at it, and things like that, because this is important and lots of students get a bit confused. So it's an unusual study. What they did to begin with is they ran a series of pilot studies, so small studies to investigate how the procedure was going to work and whether it was realistic or not. They wanted to know whether participants in these pilot studies sort of believed in the setup, and which I'm going to explain in a moment, which they did. They also asked another group of students to predict how others would behave in this study. Milgram had done a very similar thing in his study. Um, each participant in this study is tested individually. Now, they're signing up to a psychology study, but what they think they're signing up to is a study in which the experimenter discusses the ideas from future research that the research team want to conduct. Now, that study that they're suggesting to the participant um, is really unethical. It's on sensory deprivation. And it's clear that this study would be potentially harmful for people who took part in it. Now, the researchers are not asking them to take part in this study, and indeed, this study is never going to be run, so it's a lie, right? But they're asking them about the study, and they're going to ask two things. They asked them basically, if we were to run this study, could you give me the names of some of your friends who'd be willing to take part in this study? Secondly, could you write a letter which would be supportive of this kind of research that would be helpful from the university's point of view in terms of running the study? Now, as part of that, when they get moved into the next room to write down their supporting letter, and that's the obedience bit. If they write the letter, and if they write the letter in a certain way using certain words that they've been given, then that would be seen as obedient. Um, but they're also given an option when in that room writing that letter to be disobedient. That is, they don't have to write the letter, obviously. And also, they're given the option of signing an ethics consent form, committee form, that indicates whether they think the study is ethical or not. And so they have the option then of saying they don't think this study is ethical. And if they sign that ethics form and post it, um, indicating they think the study is unethical, that's been seen as whistleblowing, that they're telling the university about this unethical procedure they think these researchers want to carry out. So I hope you sort of followed that. It's not obvious the first time you come across this study and you're like, what on earth is going on? Because nothing actually really happens apart from asking them to write some stuff. Um, so go back to your textbooks, rewatch this video, talk to your teachers to get a feel for what this study is about. The nature of the study took about 40 minutes to do, and then there's a debrief at the end. Now, um, in the end of the procedure, they're asked to do these personality tests, which will hopefully give the researchers an indication of the types of people who would be obedient or disobedient or whistleblow. So let's have a look at the results. Now, participants who were in the comparison group at the beginning of the study, and they were asked, what do you think people would do in this study? Most people predicted that most of the time students wouldn't go along with this study, that they wouldn't do it. Um, in terms of what actually happened, would you nominate some of your friends to go through with this unethical study? And do you write a letter that supports the study? What they found was just slightly over 76% of participants obeyed the experimenter. They wrote that letter in support of the study, this hypothetical study, and they gave some names of some of their friends who they thought would take part in this study. N, by the way, if you're looking at the screen, just stands for number of participants, in this case, 114. Now, 14% or thereabouts disobeyed. That's where they signed an ethics consent form sorry, that's where they didn't write the letter in support, and that was 21. And then some of them went further. They didn't write the letter and they signed the ethics consent form saying they thought this was unethical. Now, again, dig a little bit deeper on this and you'll see that some people were what they call like silent whistleblowers. They wrote the letter, but then also posted the ethics form saying they thought it was unethical. And this is interesting because often when people are being disobedient, they maybe do it in a hidden way. Often when people whistleblow, they also want to keep their identity hidden or do it in a hidden way. So it's worth having a little look at the results in a bit more detail. Now, I suppose the take home there is there's a lot of obedience, which was anticipated, but also noteworthy is some significant levels of disobedience and whistleblowing. Now, let's dig in a little bit deeper there. The people who were doing this, were there any personality differences? Well, largely they found that there weren't any particular personality differences. The only one that they found was that people who whistleblew tended to score higher on having a faith. Now, that doesn't mean they are signed up to any particular religion, but it's a faith in what they called a transcendent reality. So some kind of higher consciousness, some sort of like reality that is greater than us. And people who whistleblew tended to have a faith in that. It could be a religious faith, but they framed it and were asked about faith in a transcendent reality. Let's have a look at the conclusions. So, one conclusion we can come to from this study is that the data suggests that people tend to obey authority figures, even if the authority is obviously doing something not right. In this case, suggesting that they're going to carry out this study into sensory deprivation, which would not be ethical. We know that anyway from Milgram's research, but this is just more research to indicate that people will tend to obey more than we think they will. Now, it's also clear, just like it was from Milgram's study, that what people tend to believe they will do is very different to actually what they will do. We tend to think we wouldn't obey when in fact the data indicates that quite a lot of us would. Therefore, another conclusion we can come to is that situational explanations are more accurate and predictive than what we call dispositional explanations, meaning like personality traits, your disposition. And finally, of course, it appears that there is a trend suggesting from the data that whistleblowers have more faith than people who are obedient. Obviously, a lot more research needs to be done on that and whether that actual finding is replicated in other research, but certainly it's a take home message from this study as the data stands. So I hope this video has given you a bit of an overview of this somewhat unusual study. I think the key thing to focus on is getting your head around what the procedure is like. Once you've done that, the rest of this study is relatively straightforward. Good luck with your studying and revision.